Hi, Dave here from Continental Express. Welcome to our podcast series where we're going to be sharing stories and tips from drivers and office staff. Hi, it's Dave here. This podcast is going to be on time management and strategic time management and trip planning. I got with me Aaron and Brett. So, Brett, you're in planning, right?
In planning,
How
yes.
long have you been with Continental?
A little over 10 years now.
So have you been in planning the whole time?
No, I've been in dispatch, been with dedicated dispatch, OTR dispatch, multiple levels there.
Okay.
I've managed trailers at times, and now I'm planning for going on 3 years.
So you should have a lot to add to this discussion.
Yeah, I got some experience in the industry,
Yeah.
from the inside the office perspective for sure.
Very good, very good. And you, as another certified trainer, having trainees, this is a big topic when you're training somebody when they're brand new, and there's a lot to go over with somebody that doesn't have the experience out on the road.
Oh yeah, like I said, logistics is just, it's one of those things that unfortunately, you have as much intellectual knowledge as possible until you actually physically get it under your
Yes.
belt
Yeah.
to realize all the extracurriculars that you never anticipated, such as,
Yes.
shippers, receivers, accidents, instructions, I mean, you name it, there's so many things that can delay you, that can cause a lot of frustration, that a little bit of trip planning, or just forward thinking ahead may save you.
Yes, I remember, not with this company, but when I first started driving, I was with them like my second or third month, and they gave me a load that I couldn't do. I didn't have the time. And dispatcher's going, no, you've got time. It's only so many miles. Well, they're looking at the miles that are getting paid, not the actual miles, and actually the routing. And I'm going, no, I gotta go through 2 cities, through rush hour. It might only be 45 miles, but it's gonna take me almost an hour and a half to get there, and I won't have the time to think.
Yeah.
And so, but yeah, you've dispatched, and you do trip, and you do planning now, so,
Yeah.
I mean, I'm sure you've got some stories and some more stories anyway.
I mean, to that point, there's definitely a big difference if you're going from, like Harrisburg, Pennsylvania, Indianapolis, where you got I-70, connecting all the way across, versus if you're on state highways or
Yes.
going through the city of Chicago, for example, which is
Yes.
typically
Yep.
a traffic nightmare.
Yep.
So the time you can make is drastically different in all those
Yes.
scenarios.
Yeah, the drive time you've got left in a day, compared to how many miles you gotta go, could be the difference between several minutes or an hour or more, depending on the circumstance, the driving conditions, or the place you have to go to.
Yeah.
So, I know, one thing I always did, I started doing, so we used to have a directions book with Continental. We didn't have smartphones, we didn't have GPS, we didn't have any of this technology back when I started. I didn't even have a cell phone, anything. I had a map book and a directions book. And I would route myself through the main freeway system to where I needed to get into the area. Then I would use the direction book to get to the customer. And one thing I always did was, after a few months with the company and kind of getting it down, I said, well, I got a cell phone, I'm gonna call the customer. Because I got directions, but they were 10-year-old directions, and
Yeah.
I'd already had several times where they weren't right, where it said turn left instead of right, or turn left at the 3rd light, but that was 10 years ago, and now there's 5 lights.
Yeah.
So I always would call the customer and confirm the directions, and confirm if there was any construction in the area, any detours, if I could park there, if there was somewhere close by I could park, if not.
Yeah.
And I'd always give them an ETA, and say, I could be there at like 2 p.m. Now, in reality, I could be there at like 12:30 or 1 o'clock p.m.
Yeah.
But I would always give myself a buffer.
Yeah.
And then when I showed up to the customer, well, you said you wouldn't be here till 2. Well, better early.
Yeah. Yep.
It always looked good. But this way, if there was a backup or problem or concern, anything popped up out of the
Yeah.
blue, I had a buffer.
that's, you kind of alluded to it. I've always broke down like trip planning into kind of two different facets of it. You got the logs where you're trip planning out your 11-hour drive clock, your 14-hour day. Maybe you're gonna plan I'm gonna plan my half-hour break at this point in my drive across.
Yeah. Yep.
But then there's also, like you were mentioning, the routing part of trip planning, where you're planning your route, what you're gonna take, to plan the local part. Like I know a lot of drivers today I talk to use Google Maps, pull up a satellite image, of the receiver
Yes.
they're going into and say, okay, this is what it looks like, this is where the truck traffic is, and they're putting themselves visually getting in there, kind of looking at their entrance points
Yeah.
before they show up and are trying to, find their way around. I think that's a great tool that I know
That
a lot of
is.
drivers use.
Yeah, I'll say, with the way that Continental does their loads, a lot of times the addresses they give you are like mailing addresses, not the actual truck entrance.
Yes.
So, looking at the satellite either via an iPad through the Continental app or using Google Maps, that sort of thing allows you to see, oh, hey, I can't turn right here like the GPS says, going to the mailing address. It looks like the route is actually on this road instead. I gotta make sure that when I get there, I don't do that, because I've had to do turnarounds at 2 a.m. in a parking lot I probably shouldn't have fit in. Trying to turn back around down, in some city,
Yeah.
because I took the mailing address off the GPS and not actually the actual physical truck entrance. So that's
Yeah, they route you to the employee entrance for cars. And that's what I said, that's a lot of times I'll always call the customer ahead of time. And for one, hey, if I can get there before the appointment, hey, can you take me early? Is there parking on the premises? Is there parking somewhere nearby? How soon, if you can't take me early, how soon can I show up? I wanted to know all that stuff.
Yeah.
More times than not, if you're nice about it and you're professional, a lot of times if you got like an 8 p.m. appointment, you say, hey, I can be there about 2. Would you guys, would you guys like me there too? Well, yeah, come on in. And a lot of times they'll expect you at 2. I show up at 1, and they'll put you right in the door, and by 2, 3 o'clock you're unloaded, and, instead of, and now you're ready to go on another run.
Mm-hmm.
There were times where I ran 3 and 4 extra runs in a week than they had me planned for.
Yeah.
Because I just got so far ahead of myself.
Yep.
But it was all just, like I said, it was all time management, planning the routes, figuring out where I was gonna stop, where I was gonna fuel, eat, what time I could be there, and confirming it with the customer. And I was meticulous about it. Because there's nothing worse than running out the door at the last second, and then you catch a red light, and then you show up 5 minutes late, and then, well, we got to reschedule that for 24 hours later, and now you're stuck sitting at the truck stop waiting the next day.
I think a lot of that's the kind of stuff that's an advantage, to Aaron, to trading, now, because a lot of those little things people don't know when they're first starting. They want to just rely strictly on that GPS to take them someplace, and they can learn from your experience going through that parking lot, and hopefully they don't ever face that nightmare, because, you're able to take them through that a little earlier. But
Yeah, the GPSs sometimes may give bad stuff. I know Google Maps assumes you're in a car. So it's gonna route you through trailer parks, down residential streets. It's not routing you as semi-route. So you really gotta be very careful using Google Maps, which, like you said, using the overhead view of the satellite. It is good, because then you can look at the road, you can see if it's a road that's passable with trucks, you can see where the place is. Like, what other things do you go over with your trainees and stuff as far as time management and trip planning?
Everybody's a little bit different on how they want to do things, but I generally would try to start with the end of the day. So like in the morning, I will know where I'm going to end up that night. Like the best thing to do, because as we know, truck stops are few and far in between, and so getting stuck somewhere where you don't have a good, safe place to stop the night for me was the worst part. So whether that's be figuring out if I can stay overnight at the distributor or shipper, that means if I do, if I'm going to Atlanta, Georgia, which is notoriously terrible for not only traffic, there's literally almost no parking. There's maybe 2 or 3 truck stops in the whole city that have like 20, 30 spots. Obviously it's not going to work. So I knew if I'm going to Forest Park, I know I need to make sure I got enough time that I can get down to Jackson, where there's 3 or 4 piles, 3 or 4 truck stops there. And even then, I know if I'm going to get there till 9 or 10, that's going to be really short. So fortunately, like Flying J, I'll have points saved up on my card, I will get reserve parking, so I know
Yeah,
I have a
that's-
spot
that-
at that time.
that's a
So I like to
really
plan
good
mine
thing.
out to where where's the end of the day at, where am I at? Now, obviously, we sometimes don't know our loads for the whole day, depending if we're leaving in
Yeah.
the morning, but if we know, yeah, I'm picking up tomorrow in Streetsboro and I'm heading to Gaffney, I know, okay, well, I know I can stay in Gaffney because I got the yard there. I know this
Yeah.
yard is this far away, or this drop lot is in Cincinnati, I know I can get there. So for me, a big part of it, I think one of the biggest frustrations, especially for new people, is where do I sleep? Like, where do I stop? Like
Yeah.
that sort of thing, because they're not used to sleeping in a truck. That's
Yeah.
probably for me like one of the most important things to do at the end of the day is to know where you're supposed to end up. Now, obviously, things will happen. You may not end up there, but at least having a plan gets you to a point where you don't have the anxiety or frustration of,
Yeah.
where am I going to park? Because parking as we know, parking on a ramp is not really recommended by Continental, but it's also just not safe overall because of just
Yeah.
traffic and just.
And in some states, it's illegal, so unless you're broke down, you'll get a ticket. And so, that's one of the biggest things I faced. It was, when I did over the road and stuff, in planning is where am I gonna sleep? Like, where am I gonna eat? If the customer let me stay there, well, then I know I'm gonna sleep there most likely. So I'll make sure I stop and fuel and shower and clean up and eat before I get there. Whereas if they say, well, no, you can't stay, but there's 3 truck stops within 2 miles, so once you're empty, you can go there. Okay, well, then I'm gonna get there quicker,
Yeah.
and then when I'm empty, now I can go to the truck stops. And then I'll eat and shower and clean up and stuff. So I would work I would plan my schedule around whatever worked best for the customer, based on whether they could take me early or not, if I could get there early or not, or whatever.
Yeah.
My biggest thing was, don't waste time, get the job done, and then my 10-hour break is mine to do what I need to do. But, and then whether I'm at the customers or whether I'm at the truck stop, as long as the job's done, then that's, that monkey's off the back,
Yeah.
off your back.
And I think that's an important part of what we do in the office here, for drivers out there on the road doing it. I think we're aware of the difficulty finding parking and, the lack of spots, especially the later you get into the evening, the less likely there is to find them, I think. So some of our, senior drivers who've been around for years know a lot of the spots closest to our customers that we
Yeah.
frequently deliver to, but there's also other younger, newer drivers or new customers we're delivering to, hopefully helping to find those locations, if they're having trouble, don't hesitate to ask in the office, and, we have computers sitting in front of us to help look for these places
Yeah.
to park, and, as to your point, Aaron, if that helps reduce some of the stress going down the road, that makes you a safer driver going down the road. We can relieve that pressure, from being concerned about when you get there and where you're gonna park, and.
'Cause that is a good point bringing up, if you've got a good trip plan set up, and you've got a good plan in your head of how your day's gonna go, where you're gonna stop, with the understanding that, not everything works out like you want it to. But if you've got a plan and you know where you're going and you've got it mapped out, you're going to be a lot more relaxed, a lot more calm. You have a lot less anxiety, and you can be a lot safer out on the road too. So, trip planning isn't just a smart thing to do for the job, it's also healthier for you. You're safer, you're more calm, so you're going to be, you're not getting frantic and spazzing out about where am I going to park, where am I going to go, oh no, what do I do? Oh, I just made, did I just make a wrong turn?
Yeah.
I mean, I've talked to so many drivers who've used the GPS or used Google Maps, and I used my Google Maps and it took me down the wrong road, and then it put me on a road that said no trucks, and I got a ticket. I'm like, why'd you turn down that road? Well, Google Maps told me. Well, did you trip plan? Well, no, I just put the address in the Google Maps and just followed it. But why would? And I thought, well, you didn't trip plan. You didn't call the customer. You didn't set up your plan of attack. You just typed in an address and just relied on the technology without really knowing what you were doing, and just flew by the seat of your pants. And it's a dangerous thing to do in a semi.
the technology is definitely a blessing and a curse, I think, with the stuff.
Yeah.
I mean, some of the safety things that have been added to trucks are good things and stuff, but eventually, unfortunately, people rely on too much, especially GPS. So
Yeah.
I always tell them it's a very, very educated suggestion.
Yes.
I can list off the times in which even the Continental GPS had me going down the road that had two big signs that say no trucks, weight limit 8,000 pounds. Like that was,
Yeah,
they wanted
yeah.
me to turn there and stuff.
You're gonna fall through a bridge, just ain't it?
Yeah, exactly, sort
Yeah.
of thing. So it would
Yeah.
definitely be useful, like you said, looking at the GPS, looking at the satellite, knowing where we're going, getting some good ideas. But the GPS is, unless it's on a phone, and if you're using a Garmin or a Ram McNally, those won't have live traffic updates.
Yeah,
You'll never, you'll never know when
You'll
you're coming
never
up with
know.
something. So like I said, that's why it's always good to use it as a very, very educated suggestion. But the rules of the road are the rules of the road. I mean, I talked to a trooper about it. He goes, "I'm sorry, if your GPS tells you to turn down this road, you can't. That is not going to hold up in court." That's it's just gonna,
Your GPS isn't gonna pay the ticket either.
Exactly, GPS is going to pay the ticket. So, so like I said, the GPS obviously a very useful tool, but realize it is a tool. It is not.
Yeah,
It
it's,
is not the law. It is not.
and honestly, as good as the technology is, I mean, all this stuff is working towards self-driving trucks and stuff someday. But you still have to drive the truck, you still have to control it, you still have to know where you're going. It's, even with all the technology, if you're going somewhere new, it's not a bad idea to get a map book out and plan your route and write it out. Because I've had plenty of times where, I'm driving in the car and I got Google Maps up, or I got my navigation up on my screen in my car, my personal vehicle. And all of a sudden, it has a glitch or something and reroutes you some way you don't even need to go. And then you're going, now, if you don't know where you're going, you're staring at that thing, well, where's the blue line? Oh, I gotta turn here with the, But if you trip planned and you wrote down your directions and you wrote down where you're stopping at, you got phone numbers, addresses wrote down, and you've got it on a little piece of paper, sticky noted on your dash or whatever. Worst case scenario, something happens, all your electronics go out and you've got nothing, you've got your directions right there, so.
Yeah, I think experience definitely helps in this sort of thing. Not only just from experience of just having to do it time after time, it's also just having experience going down the same roads. If you do similar routes and stuff, that I-70 is going to be construction from here to here, sort of thing. So you got to plan accordingly to that. Again, like I said, we talk about places to sleep and stop. If you get to a certain city or a certain area, these are the truck stops around that I know. Put them in your GPS. Like I said, take notes. Put them in stuff. Like I said, on my Ram McNally, I have that. I have every stop GPS. Every truck entrance GPS on it. So not just the actual, but the actual entrance. I have GPS on there, and then I put on there. Yes, overnight parking. No overnight parking. Like putting stuff like that.
So when you go back through that and you're going that same route, 6 months down the road, I can park there. Yeah.
Mhm.
Yeah. So I used to do the same thing, only it was pre-technology. But I pulled my little notebook and I'd write down the shipper and how to get there, from wherever I was at, and the receiver and how to get there, and then I'd write down the truck stops I was gonna stop at, all the phone numbers, and you'd be driving down the road staring at that thing, looking, But back then you had to use the map book, so you didn't have a thing saying, hey, in 23.5 miles you're gonna turn left. No, you had to look on the map and figure out how far that road was and figure out the mile length of that road, and there's a lot more analog to it, a lot more pen and pencil, but having that something solid that, like just even a quick just jot down of directions. What if you're driving down the road and you hit a pothole and your phone falls out of the holder and you can't reach it, and your tablet's resetting itself, and all of a sudden you're driving down the road and your turn's coming, but you don't know where you're gonna go. It's still a good idea to have something to fall back on.
To that point, taking notes about the places you're going. That's several drivers I dispatched. 3 million safe mile driver, 2 million safe mile driver, all did that. They all took notes about places they were going so they could recall best way to get in, best way to get out.
Yep.
Say, Because, you know, first time you're there, maybe you got there and it wasn't busy. Next time you're there be traffic everywhere. There could be stuff going, but you have your notes kind of guiding you through to help recollect before you get there. And
Yeah, yeah. So, as far as time management, I mean, some people are really good at it, some people struggle at it. I mean, I'm one of those where I get up in the day, I want to go where I need to go and be done, and then the rest of the day is mine. I don't do a bunch of extra stops. I don't waste time or screw around. I stop. When I stop, I eat, I shower, I fuel, I do everything, and, you know, I try to be as efficient as possible with my stops. And to maximize my daytime, maximize my drive time. That'd be the best advice that I could give new drivers is, you know, put the work in, and then use free time to do what you need to do as far as, you know, if you want to play video games or eat, shower, whatever, you know. If you have to do that en route, do it efficiently. Bulk your stops, maximize your stops.
that's kind of something I've talked to drivers, you know, over the years, kind of to be like the most profitable drivers I've seen financially is when you have time to drive, like you're saying, you drive out that time. You got miles in front of you, the time to go, you want to go.
Yep.
You know, now caveat to that is never sacrificing safety. You know, that's not
Well,
a compromise.
yeah.
If you need to stop and take a break, you know, for a couple hours, by all means do that. But other than that, to be the most efficient, like you said, to get that time done while you can get it done, then take your time. And
Yeah, I mean, safety is always gonna be the top thing. There have been times, I mean, I've been out here doing this for over 19 years now. There's been times where I've been out in the middle of nowhere and my stomach hurts and I feel like I'm gonna get sick and I gotta pull over. It's like, you know, that's not a 2-second pull over and then jump back in and go. Yeah, you could be sitting,
Yeah.
There's times where I've had to pull over, stop and get out of the truck, you know, for a half an hour, 45 minutes and just, you know, hey, am I gonna get sick? Am I not gonna get sick? I mean, you know, you just don't know. But yeah, so safety is always gonna be, I mean, there's times where I drive most of my day and I don't have to stop at all. There's other times where I'll stop 3 or 4 or 5 times.
Yeah.
To use a restroom, to, you know, to wash up, whatever. I mean, it happens, you know, it's just the nature of the one day to the next, you don't know. But, you know, you get one of those things where you drive for an hour and a half and then you stop at a truck stop and then you're there for an hour or two and then you drive for an hour and a half and you stop at another truck stop and your day's coming to an end, you know, 8 hours after it could have, and you could have almost had another 10-hour break in and be ready to go, and you're just stopping. So it's, you know, you gotta maximize your time and try to be efficient, and then you have plenty of time to do the things you need to do.
Yeah. And when you do see that situation happens where, you know, there's a frequent stopping and you're losing your drive, at this point your 14's falling below your drive time. I mean, best case, you just lost the ability to drive your time and it's cost you time and money a little bit, but worst case, you put yourself in too big of a rush now trying to get into the receiver because you're pushed that appointment to the last minute. And that's when it becomes a safety issue too.
And the reason I don't do that is I always think, okay, well, what happens if I get 20 miles from them and then I blow a flat and now I'm sidelined?
Yep.
I mean, yeah, I could call them and go, hey, I broke down. I'll get there when I can get there. And they can go, okay, we'll reschedule you when you get here. You know, but I've had times where I broke down, got fixed, still got the load delivered on time. The way I run now, I've had twice now where I broke down to where the truck's not fixable. They have to bring me another truck. Both times that's taken north of 10 hours. So I'm sitting there on the side of the road, broke down for 10 hours. Then I got to switch everything from that truck into the other truck, and I've still got my load delivered on time. So I mean, yeah, you can get you can get way ahead of yourself sometimes, and it can be very beneficial. That's not always practical, and you can't always do that. But like I said, I've had times where they had me planned on 5 or 6 runs for the week, and I got all of them done in half the week, and I ran 3 or 4 extra runs. That's hundreds and hundreds of more dollars on my paycheck that they weren't even planning on giving me.
I think it's a benefit that the newer drivers don't realize. The more efficient you are, the more money you make.
Yeah, that's
that's one of the reasons I enjoy trucking is there's a very good correlation between how good and how hard you work
to how much you
how
make.
much you make. Because when I
Yeah.
hear guys that only want to drive 1,100 miles or something, I'm thinking like, I can do 2,500 in a week, no problem. Sort of thing,
Yeah.
as long as I'm thoroughly planning myself. As
Yeah,
far as
okay.
500 to 600 miles a day. I think the most, my record, I think was 651. I think on my way to Utah one time, 651 miles in one day. And that's 10 hours, 15 minutes driving. That was really tight.
You're staring at single digits, sweating, looking for a parking spot.
Yeah, trying to get to
Yeah.
trying to get to the truck stop that I had planned on. But I think it's one thing that you realize that if you really take trip planning seriously,
Yeah.
and really put the effort into it, and at night when you go, do your 10, plan the next morning, plan the next day, plan your next stop. You will see direct benefits to your paycheck
Yeah.
based on not only safety miles, but just you're not stopping to have an aisle and sit somewhere for a while. It could save you, get your fuel bonus. Like there's a very direct correlation on your efficiency of driving to your paycheck. And I think all of us would recommend, we probably get more money in our paycheck. We appreciate that.
Yeah.
As planners, we certainly recognize that. Drivers are very efficient with their time and get more done, and we know on the longer, bigger
You're
plans,
gonna
we
give
can
them-
count on this driver to knock this drive out and to get there on time, and
Yeah, and
so.
the way I always look at it is every time I pull out of my driveway, I'm not looking forward to picking up the load, deliver the load, or anything in between. I'm looking for, okay, what's the best way for me to get back into this driveway going in the other direction? If you're efficient with your time, if you trip plan properly, and you maintain your time management, you can maximize home time. I mean, would you rather spend 6-7 extra hours checking out truck stops and rest areas through the week when you could be driving, or would you rather spend those 6 or 7 hours at home with your wife and kids, or your family, your loved ones? That's how I've always looked at it, is what is the most efficient, effective, best way for me to get back home where I want, I'm pulling out of the driveway. Well, how quick can I get pulled back in this driveway? And what's the best way for me to do that? That's always been my motivation. And then, that being said, safety's at the top of it, because I don't want to be coming in my driveway from the hospital,
Yep.
So, but, it's, that's one thing I always looked at, is if I waste time out on the road when I'm at work to support my family, then I'm losing time. I could be at home enjoying my family, or them enjoying me. So, that was always my mindset, how I just kind of looked at things, and that was my motivation to try to do things as effectively, as efficiently as possible. Like I said, it doesn't always work out like you plan. Everything could go wrong, but if you at least have a plan to fall back on. I always had trip plans, and like you said, you go to some places enough times over and over and over, you get comfortable with them, get familiar with them, you get to know them. Okay, well, the one time I was here, this happened, or this happened. I'd have contingent plans in place. I'd have, okay, this is how I want the day to go, but if it doesn't go like this, I'd have okay, I'll settle for this, and I'd have,
Yeah.
so I would have, sometimes for one trip, depending on where I was going and how familiar I was, I might have a trip plan and 2 contingents, But yeah, my whole motivation was I wanted to safely and efficiently get home, because any extra time, I wanted it to be in my driveway,
Yeah,
so.
absolutely.
Yeah. And that's the, we're all out here to do a job, we're all out here to do it safe, but we're all out here because we're trying to support our families. Yeah, so the better you can do that, the more money you can make, the more time you can get home to get to your family. So, that would be my closing thought on it. Do you have any closing thoughts?
Yeah, I think just everything you kind of summed up there when you said driving safely first and then efficiently ultimately leads to, like you said, you're making the most of your family to bring home, and it's also affecting that home time as well, which is, you know, that balanced life, and, you know, has you the best ready for next week to tackle it again.
Yeah.
Yeah, I think one of the most useful tools is communication, talking to dispatchers. There have been plenty of times in which I said, hey, I'm not sure I can make this, and I'll look at it on the logs, or we'll check the GPS, like, yeah, you can, let's go ahead and route you this way, or, well, hey, we'll notify the shipper ahead of time and see if they can still take you. You know, I just had an instance this week where we were trying to do some relaying, and I thought, hey, maybe we should try it this way, just in case, you know, that way I could save some time driving, you know, that sort of stuff. And we looked at it, like, yeah, let's go ahead and do that instead. So we switched up some loads and that sort of thing. So, you know, I think dispatchers, obviously, they want to, they're on our side. They're on the same side as us. They want to be able to get their loads on time. They want us to get as efficiently as possible. So communicating with them when anything happens, you're sitting on the interstate because of a wreck or something, call them, hey, I'm sitting here, I've been here for an hour, I don't know when I'm going to be done. That way they can plan ahead and
They can relay it to
they
the
can relay
customer
it,
and work
yeah,
out.
exactly.
Yeah.
So communication with your dispatcher is a very, very useful tool when it comes to the trips.
Very good point. Yeah, that's a very good point.
Absolutely. I think
Right.
I like exactly what you said there. We're on the same side. We want you to get the miles and drive. We want you to be on time and efficient, safe, and yeah, that's definitely the goal. So that's, you know, sometimes there are those tight plans where, like you're saying, I don't know if I'm going to make it, and it might be, and I don't know. Maybe you will, maybe you won't. But you know, if everything was perfect, maybe. But I think that's a situation where, like you said, we can find relays, or you know, even worst case, if you like load to the middle of nowhere. That's good. I know I can notify the customer, you know, of an ETA, and usually they're willing to work with us as well, if worst case. But
Yep. So, all right, well, that is our podcast on time management.